now back to the election and the states which will decide the outcome. First, Florida, indispensable to Mr. Trump. A new Quinnipiac poll there has Clinton up by only one, 46 to 45, and a separate CNN poll out for Florida shows Clinton doing slightly better but only pulling off a 2-point lead, besting Trump 49, as you can see there, to 47. A few other states worth noting. Nevada, there the CNN poll has Trump up 6. In mid-October, that same CNN poll had Clinton up by 2. Did I say Clinton up 6? I meant Trump. In Pennsylvania, Clinton is still ahead, but her lead has diminished some. Clinton is up by 4 points in the historically blue state. So let's try to make some sense of all this. I'm joined now by the veteran political strategist and Fox News contributor Karl Rove, and by the pollster Darren Shaw, who is responsible for our Fox News polls and is also, I should say, a member of the Fox News decision desk. Karl, Darren, thanks very much. Darren, let me go to you first quickly. Your thoughts on these poll results. I assume that they would mean that Donald Trump has a path, and probably a little wider path than it's been, but still not exactly a freeway to the election, right?
I think that interpretation is right, Britt. I mean, the thing that I would point out is, there's a little bit of variation, not a lot, but a little bit of variation in the point estimates. Is he down 2 points or 3 points? That's meaningful, and we want to pay attention to that. But as you correctly observed, it's the trend, I think, that people are really kind of ought to pay attention to right here. So even in the polls that have been most generous to Mrs. Clinton, Trump has basically chopped about 3 points off her lead across these set of states. But I think all that's essentially done is gotten him from a sure loss to a position where he's on the verge of being competitive again, which is something a lot of us didn't think was in the cards about a week and a half ago.
Karl, your thoughts?
I think Darren's absolutely right. There was good news for both candidates in these polls. For Trump, Arizona is firming up and remain in the column with its 11 electoral votes. Nevada, a swing state, moving into his column. Good news, though, for her. She's holding Pennsylvania, which is 20 electoral votes, and more importantly, she's doing better in Florida than she has in recent polls. Think about this. There's the so-called blue wall. These are the 18 states in the District of Columbia that the Democrats have won in every one of the last 6 presidential elections, 242 electoral votes. She wins Florida and the blue wall, she's president of the United States. Florida is the must-win state for Donald Trump in order to stay alive.
He has to have it, yeah. So Romney got 206 electoral votes, and Obama got 332. So Clinton if she simply holds his states, right, she's president. But she's down in Ohio. She's down in Ohio.
And she's down in Iowa.
And she's down in Iowa.
And she's down in the Real Clear Politics average in Florida.
In Florida. So, but if he wins all of those, Darren, all 3 of those, he's still not home, though, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, we've been talking for a long time about Ohio, North Carolina, and Florida as being the linchpin states to, Trump being in a position to win. I think that's still the case. I think he needs those. And as Karl pointed out, Nevada, I think, is increasingly obvious, has to be part of his coalition. And that gets him to within striking distance. But he still needs to knock off New Hampshire or Colorado or Pennsylvania, one of these other blue states. And even though he's crept within distance here, within striking distance, he's not there yet. So I agree with Karl's statement. There's some good news for her here. She seems to be holding steady. And this is even assuming he locks down a state like North Carolina or Florida. And there's no evidence he's done that yet. He's still in a dogfight. In fact, she's probably got a slight edge in those states.
Yeah, and North Carolina, we've been talking about everybody's talking about North Carolina this week. Yeah. North Carolina, of course, was carried by Mitt Romney, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
And she's ahead there. And if he loses that state, his path becomes not quite insurmountable, but I mean a very tall order.
Yeah, particularly since she has a strong lead in Virginia. Think about this: the blue wall plus North Carolina plus Virginia, lose everything else, she's still president of the United States.
Well, Virginia was part of the Obama combination in 2012, and that's out of reach.
And 2008 as well.
Yeah,
correct.
That looks out of reach to you, correct?
I believe so. If you take a look at the Real Clear Politics average, it's up there with Pennsylvania in the high.
Now, I know it's hard to assess at this stage the effect of these revelations in recent days and the reopening of the email investigation, and of course we've got what Brett was just here talking about. Do we have any sense from this polling yet whether this is having a dramatic effect, a mild effect, or was it simply about where you thought does this now lie about where you thought it would lie with the kind of late closing that we've seen in so many races?
Well, I think it was late closing. I think it is the Friday announcement is having an effect. I don't think we're yet seeing it in the polls because most of these polls, the CNN polls, were conducted after Friday. I'm dubious about polls conducted over the Halloween weekend.
Right.
So I think it may be tomorrow or the next day before we see it. But the problem is each side is so intractably tied into itself. 95% of Clinton supporters in ABC Washington Post had an unfavorable opinion of Trump. 90% of them strongly unfavorable. 97% of Trump supporters had an unfavorable opinion of Clinton. 90% of them strongly. And the undecideds and third party that were up for grabs, 7 or 8%.
Darren, Carl, thank you both very much.